"I've made my decision," she said, her voice tight with a seriousness that bordered on theatrical. "Today we are calling this off. The engagement is over." She stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan penthouse, her slender frame a sharp silhouette against the glittering skyline. In her hand, she clutched a document she'd printed out in the dead of night, a temporary engagement dissolution agreement, stamped with a ridiculous self-designed official seal that made it look like a prop from a high school play. Sebastian North sat on the sofa, casually flipping through a copy of the Wall Street Journal. He took a slow sip of his coffee without looking up. "This is the 7th time." "The 9th," she corrected, her voice cracking with indignant fury. My mistake." He finally lifted his gaze to meet hers, a smirk playing on his lips. He looked at her as one might look at a kitten trying to act like a tiger. "Unfortunately, the agreement is invalid." "And why is it invalid?" She stormed over, slamming the paper onto the glass coffee table. "Would it kill you to just sign it?" He picked it up by a corner, his eyes scanning it with lazy amusement. "The paper stock is too flimsy. Doesn't meet the legal standard for a binding contract." "You just don't want to end it," she accused, her eyes turning red with frustration. "That's right," he admitted, his tone infuriatingly calm and his gaze soft. "I have never, not for a moment, considered ending our engagement." She froze, thrown by his directness. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She whipped her head away, her voice suddenly breathy. Don't try to sweet-talk me. I'm not falling for it." "Then what are you falling for?" Sebastian rose to his feet, towering over her. "Jealousy." "Who's jealous?" "You're delusional. Last night at dinner, that new client looked at me for 2 seconds too long, and you stabbed her scallops with your fork 3 times. I was helping you serve them," she insisted, her chin jutting out. "You were aiming for her eyes," he countered, stepping closer. A slow smile spread across his face. "Don't you think you're getting a little clingy?" Who's clingy?" She took a step back, her spine hitting the cold glass of the window. Her eyes darted around the room, anywhere but at him. "Stop talking nonsense." He braced a hand on the window next to her head, trapping her in the space between his arms. His voice dropped to a low, husky murmur. "If you really want to call this off, then kiss me right now. Then turn around and walk away." Her eyes widened. What? You're the one who says you don't love me, that you don't care, that calling this off would be the best day of your life, right?" He leaned in, his lips brushing against her ear. "So prove it. Kiss me, and then walk out of here like you mean it." Her breath caught in her throat. The silence that followed stretched like a taut wire. Chewing on her lip, she hesitantly rose onto her toes. She squeezed her eyes shut as if she were about to defuse a bomb and quickly, clumsily, pressed her lips against his for a fraction of a second. "There, I did it." She turned to flee, words tumbling out her mouth. She hadn't taken 2 steps before his hand shot out and clamped around her wrist. He gently but firmly pulled her back, sending her stumbling into his chest. "But I didn't agree to end it," he whispered. "And since you kissed me, we're definitely not calling it off." She stood frozen in his arms, the tips of her ears burning a bright, furious red. She stubbornly buried her face in his chest, refusing to speak. He chuckled softly and leaned down to kiss her forehead. "Are we calling it off tomorrow?" Her voice was muffled against his shirt. "In your dreams." "Good. I'll take that as a yes to picking out wedding dresses tomorrow." "Sebastian North, you're shameless." Enraged, she looked up and tried to hit him, but he just caught her hands and pulled her closer. He looked down at her, his eyes holding a depth of affection and joy she had never allowed herself to see. "You can try to call it off 100 times if you want. I can handle failing 100 times. As long as on the last try, you don't leave." Her heart skipped a beat, the words hitting her with the force of a physical blow. She hadn't even realized it herself, but the only reason she threatened to leave every day was to watch him refuse to let her go again and again. So she turned her head away, her heart softening even as her voice remained proud. "Tomorrow, I'll see how I feel." "All right, I'll be waiting for you to be in a good mood," he said with a smile. "And then, I'm going to marry you." The next day, she said she would see how she felt. But just after 8 in the morning, Sebastian's black sedan was parked in front of her apartment building. She peeked through a crack in the blinds and couldn't help but let out a dry, exasperated laugh. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, but she went downstairs anyway. The passenger door swung open. Sebastian held it for her, a sly grin on his face. "Feeling good today?" She slid into the seat without a word, offering only a slight humph as a reluctant confirmation. The bridal boutique he'd booked was an exclusive, high-end atelier on Madison Avenue. The moment they stepped inside, they were enveloped in the scent of champagne, fresh flowers, and expensive fabrics. "Welcome, Mr. North, and welcome to your fiancée." A consultant greeted them respectfully. "We've prepared a selection of gowns for you to try on today." Josie's ears turned pink at the word fiancé. "Don't call me that." Sebastian simply raised an eyebrow at her, then smiled at the consultant. "You called her correctly? That's exactly who she is." She shot him a death glare, but a strange, sweet feeling bloomed in her chest. "Would you like to try this one? It's a limited edition piece from our new collection. A very strong design," the consultant said, presenting a stunning mermaid-style gown that was expertly tailored to hug every curve. Josie glanced at it and scoffed. "You think I were something so revealing and tacky?" "Then what style did you have in mind?" the consultant asked, unfazed. Josie pointed randomly. "That one. The most conservative one you have, the one that covers everything from neck to ankle." Sebastian looked at the dress, which looked more appropriate for a historical drama than a modern wedding, and laughed. "Are you picking a fight with the dress now?" She lifted her chin, her tone icy. "I just appreciate a sense of decorum." "I see," he nodded. "It's a shame. I'd prefer you in something that makes other men afraid to even look." She froze for a second, a blush creeping up her neck. "You, stop saying things like that." "I'm serious," he said, stepping closer to whisper in her ear. "I dreamed about you in that mermaid dress last night." Her eyes went wide, and she looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "Sebastian, you're a pervert." He just smiled. "You're only just now realizing that." Fuming, she snatched the dress and stormed into the fitting room. More than 10 minutes passed, and she still hadn't come out. The consultant stood outside awkwardly. "Ma'am, do you need any assistance?" After another long moment of silence, a quiet voice came from inside. The zipper is stuck." Sebastian heard and walked over. "Tell her to go away." Josie yelled defensively through the curtain. "She hasn't moved," Sebastian said calmly from outside. "Want to try?" "Don't you dare come in here," she snapped, her voice edged with panic. He waited 3 seconds. Hearing no further objections, he spoke again, his voice low. "I'm coming in." She was about to explode. You pervert. "If you touch a single hair on my head, I'll tear up this engagement." "Then you'll have to try touching me first," he said, slipping into the fitting room. His actions were faster than his words. With one steady hand, he zipped up the back of the dress. The gown clung to her skin. He was standing so close she could feel the heat of his palm through the fabric on her back. Her breathing hitched. "Okay, you zipped it. Now get out." "All right," he said with a soft smile. He leaned down and placed a gentle kiss on the side of her neck. A reward. She felt like she was going to self-combust. A mixture of shame and anger washed over her as she spun around. She raised her hand to smack him, but he caught her wrist, pressing her hand firmly against his chest. "Miss Jiang," he murmured, "if you keep coming on to me like this, I'm not going to be able to control myself." She stared at him for 5 full seconds, her ears as red as ripe apples. I wasn't coming on to you," she sputtered. "You started it." He smiled. "Then I guess we're even." She was speechless, staring at his smile as her heart pounded a wild, erratic rhythm. Suddenly, the thought of calling off the engagement didn't seem so appealing anymore. But she lifted her chin, clinging to her last shred of pride. "Today. I won't call it off today. We'll see about tomorrow." "Okay," he agreed, his voice as soft and intimate as a promise. "Then tomorrow, I'll continue to love you." After trying on the dress, she walked out of the fitting room, feigning composure. Sebastian was already waiting outside, holding the shoes she had changed out of. "Let's go," she said, running a hand through her hair and avoiding his gaze. "That's enough for today." "All right," he replied softly. He placed her shoes in the car and held the passenger door open for her. Once the door was closed, she pretended to look out the window, but she was watching him from the corner of her eye. He drove with one hand on the steering wheel, his handsome profile bathed in the warm, golden light of the setting sun. For a moment, she was completely mesmerized. Staring at something? He asked suddenly. She immediately snapped her gaze away. I was not looking at you. He gave a small smile, as if he were used to her stubborn denials. You looked beautiful in the wedding dress today. She turned her back to him slightly. The makeup and that dress were not my style. Then I guess you're just naturally my style. A small laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it, and she quickly schooled her expression back into a frown. Don't think a few smooth lines will make me give up on my plan to end this. I'm not worried, he said, glancing at her with a fond look in his eyes. You threaten to leave every day, yet you go out with me every day. If you don't show up on our wedding day, I'd feel too guilty to marry anyone else. You dare marry someone else? She shot back, her voice suddenly cold. He paused, then turned to look at her, a slow grin spreading across his face. So you do get jealous? I do not, she stammered, her face flushed as she instinctively tightened her grip on the seatbelt. I just don't want you embarrassing the Jiang family name. So you admit you're my fiancé now? In name only. All right, he nodded. Then tonight, will you lean on me in name only? She didn't understand. What do you mean? He suddenly changed lanes, pulling the car over to the side of the road. He reached into the back seat and pulled out a blanket. You didn't sleep well last night, did you? Rest for a bit. Otherwise, you'll be too tired to eat dinner again. She tried to refuse. I'm not tired. Then just close your eyes. Before she could finish, he had already reclined her seat with a gentle, practiced motion, as if they had been married for years. She wanted to protest, but when he reached for her, she instinctively leaned into him. Before she knew it, her head was resting on his shoulder. Sebastian quietly took out his phone and dimmed the smart glass windows, then gently tucked a stray strand of her hair behind her ear. The car was silent, filled only with the sound of her soft, even breathing. He looked down at her sleeping face, his eyes filled with an unspoken tenderness. Every time you say you want to call it off, you're really just asking me to chase you one more time, aren't you? He whispered. She didn't hear him. She was fast asleep. But just as he thought she was completely lost in her dreams, she murmured, so low he almost missed it. If you ever stop chasing, I'll really run. He froze for a second, then broke into a wide, genuine smile. He spoke softly, as if talking to a sleepwalking child. Okay, I'll chase you. I'll chase you for the rest of my life. She didn't reply, but the corners of her lips curved into a gentle, secret smile. In that moment, he knew she had never, ever planned on leaving. The next morning, Josie was still curled up on the sofa eating breakfast when Sebastian left, saying he had to pick up a package. She had just taken a bite of her toast when the housekeeper opened the living room door. Miss, your father and mother are here. She nearly choked. Before she could say, I'm not seeing them, Mr. and Mrs. Jiang had already walked in. Josie, her mother said, pulling her down to sit, her tone placating, don't you think it's time to seriously reconsider this engagement? Josie looked up, swallowing her food. What's that supposed to mean? Her father spoke, his face stern. Our family and the Norths agreed to this union because of your grandfather's wishes. But now, the second branch of the North family wants their son to take over. Sebastian is just an adopted son, her mother added. The other one, the biological grandson, at least has a cleaner background and a less complicated family tree. Josie, you have to think about your future. Josie's expression was placid. So you're here to force me to switch fiancés? It's not forcing. Her mother softened her tone. It's a suggestion. You're still young. You have a choice. She stared down, stirring the milk in her cereal bowl. After a long moment, she let out a soft laugh. You're right. I do have a choice. Her father breathed a sigh of relief. Then and I choose Sebastian. The words hung in the air, and a heavy silence fell over the room. Her mother frowned. Has he been sweet-talking you? You need to be rational about these things. I'm more clear-headed than you think, Josie said, slowly putting down her spoon. You never ask who I want to marry. You only look at family status and power. But you're forgetting one thing. What's that? I am Justin Jun. I'm not a pawn in your business negotiations. She walked to the window, her voice quiet but firm. Grandfather arranged this match, and I'll honor it. Not because of the name North, but because of him, her father's face darkened. Do you have any idea that he's just an orphan the North took in? Your future is with the North family, not with him alone. He alone, she said, turning to face them with a cool, distant look in her eyes, is worth more than the entire North family. You want to change the engagement? Fina, have the Norths replace me. Don't you dare replace him. The sound of soft footsteps came from the doorway. A second later, Sebastian appeared, holding a carton of milk. He had clearly heard everything. Josie glanced at him, but didn't say a word, only asking flatly, "Where's the package?" "I forgot it," he said, walking over and placing the milk in front of her. "I'll only remember to come back and see if you were here." A flicker of warmth crossed her eyes, but she didn't let it show. "My mother says you're not worthy of being my fiancé." He raised an eyebrow at Mrs. Jiang, his voice dangerously calm. "Don't worry, Mrs. Jiang. If Josie wanted to switch, I would never stand in her way." Josie scoffed. "Too bad for you, I refuse." A ripple of emotion crossed his eyes, and he broke into a low laugh. "Then I'll just have to keep waiting for you. To call it off once a day, and for me to win you back once a day." Her mother's face was a mask of displeasure. Josie waved her hand impatiently. "Mom, if you really cared about me, you'd stop trying to control my choices." The tension in the room was thick. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang finally left, their faces grim. The moment the door closed, Sebastian reached out and gently smoothed the hair she had messed up herself. "I heard that," he said softly. "He alone is worth more than the entire North family." "Good that you heard it," she retorted, pouting. "I was just saying it to make them angry." "Oh," he raised an eyebrow. "So I should probably go ahead and try to end the engagement?" She shot him a sidelong glance, then leaned into him just slightly, her voice taking on a whiny, playful edge. "You dare." Sebastian laughed, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Never. I'm stuck on you for good." She huffed, but the smile she was trying to hide spread across her face. From that moment on, she finally stopped hiding behind the shell of their arrangement. With her own hands, she had opened the window to let in something real. Josie had assumed her parents' little drama would be the biggest storm she'd have to weather for a while. That was until her ex-boyfriend came back to the country. That day, she had just left a private viewing for a luxury fashion brand when a figure blocked her path. "Josie, it's been a while." The man wore a bespoke suit, his expression gentle, but his tone held a familiar sense of possessive control. Josie's brow twitched, but she quickly recovered with a polite, dismissive smile. "I'm sorry, have we met?" The man's smile faltered. He sighed. "You never used to be like this with me." "I used to have terrible judgment," she said, attempting to walk around him. He stepped in front of her again, his voice lowering. "I heard you're engaged to the North family's adopted son. Josie, you shouldn't have to settle." Josie's gaze turned to ice. "And you think you have the right to make that decision for me?" "You don't even know him," the man, Derek, insisted. "What is Sebastian North? He's a tool for the Jiang and North families to exchange favors. He can't even count on keeping his own last name. If you marry him on an impulse, you'll be the one to regret it." Josie didn't speak. She just gave him a look dripping with contempt and let out a cold laugh. "And who do you think you are?" She turned to leave, but he grabbed her by the wrist. "Josie, I came back for you," he said, his voice changing, a hint of obsession creeping into his eyes. "You were waiting for me, weren't you? I still have all the letters you wrote me when we were kids. You're just acting out now. I can forgive you." In the next second, another hand shot out and violently tore Derek's grip from her arm. Sebastian was standing behind them, his eyes like chips of ice. "Let go of her." Derek was stunned. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Her fiancé," Sebastian said, his voice dangerously low. "And you are ancient history." He pulled Josie behind him, shielding her as he looked down at Derek. "If you come near her again, I will make sure you can't take a single step in this city." Derek sneered. "You really think she's with you willingly? You're just a shield she's using to avoid a real marriage." Sebastian didn't answer him. He just turned to Josie. "Can I make him shut up?" Josie nodded. "Please do." Sebastian took a step forward, grabbing Derek by the lapels of his expensive suit. "I don't care about her past," he said, his voice a low growl. "But her present and her future belong to me." He shoved him away, sending Derek stumbling backward. Josie watched him, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Sebastian, are you jealous?" I'm protecting my wife, he said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She didn't reply, just watched him, her lips pressed together, her eyes hiding something unreadable. Sebastian moved closer, looking down at her. What is it? You really don't care that he and I were together? He paused for a moment, then reached out and gently stroked her hair. The only thing I care about is that you only have eyes for me now. Josie's voice was barely a whisper. Ido, and I get jealous too. He blinked, surprised. She bit her lip, then continued softly. Since we've been together, you haven't even added another woman on your contacts. I know. I'm controlling and insecure, Josie admitted, looking up at him. If you ever fell for someone else, I think I'd kill you, and then I'd kill myself. Sebastian looked at her, his expression serious. Don't worry, he said. Each were a vow. You saved my life. I would never give it to anyone else. She stared at him, stunned in his silence. Sebastian leaned down, his voice dropping to a husky murmur she had never heard before. Josie, I never intended for this to be just an arrangement. I was never planning on walking away. I have, truly, placed you in the very center of my heart. Her eyes welled up, a warmth spreading through her chest. After a long moment, she whispered, If you had said that sooner, I might have stopped trying to call it off a long time ago. So, are you calling it off now? She looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She rose up on her toes, kissed him softly, and whispered, No, I'm taking it back. Sebastian stared at her, his throat tight. Then are we going to City Hall tonight to get the license? She glared at him. What's the rush? I'm afraid you'll change your mind by morning. The only thing I'll regret in the morning is not kissing you sooner. A low laugh rumbled in his chest, and he pulled her into his arms. Then you can kiss me now. Don't wait for morning. Josie didn't fight it. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with 1,000 unspoken emotions. The next second, she leaned in and captured his lips with her own. The kiss was clean, passionate, and certain. It felt like a promise written in the ink of their youth, searing a permanent mark upon Sebastian's heart. The next morning, Josie opened her eyes. The curtains were still drawn, but the soft morning light filtered in, casting a warm glow across the head of the bed. Sebastian was still asleep. His features were peaceful, almost ethereal in the morning light. She watched him for a few seconds, then, on a whim, she reached out and gently brushed his eyelashes with her fingertip. His eyes snapped open. They were dark and deep. Can't bear to see me wake up, he murmured. Josie flinched, tried to pull her hand back, but he caught her wrist. A sneak kiss in the morning, taking the lead at night. And now you've learned how to launch a surprise attack. Why couldn't you just keep your eyes closed and play dead? You were touching me. How could I bear to stay asleep? Josie rolled her eyes. She was about to retort when he suddenly pulled her into a tight embrace. About last night, getting a license. Is that still on the table? If you don't say anything, I'm taking it as a yes. Sebastian, you. Chill. It's Friday. We can go to City Hall this morning. You have that interview with the magazine in the afternoon. I've already arranged your schedule. How did you know about my interview? I'm your fiancé. Of course I know everything about you, he said, leaning down to press a soft kiss on her lips. And tonight, we're having dinner at your parents' house. I'd like to make my official debut as your husband. Josie's ears turned red. She gave him a light kick under the covers. You're too damn bossy. You can boss me around for the rest of my life, and I'll boss you around for the rest of yours. On the day they made it official, Josie didn't dress up. She wore a simple white dress and a touch of makeup as she stood outside City Hall. Sebastian stood beside her in a crisp black shirt, looking so handsome he could have walked off a movie set. While they were waiting for the number to be called, a young couple next to them kept staring. Finally, the girl whispered to her boyfriend, I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Is he famous? Josie overheard and turned with a small smile. He's not famous. He's my husband. The young couple's jaws dropped. Sebastian, looking pleased, wrapped an arm around her as they walked into the registrar's office. Wife, he whispered, I could listen to you say that for the rest of my life. When it was done, she held the small red certificate, staring at the photo of the two of them, side by side. It felt surreal. Sebastian took her hand and led her out. Once they were in the car, he leaned over and kissed the certificate. I got her. Are you insane? Yes. Terminally lovesick. There's no cure. Josie wanted to laugh, but her heart felt warm and full. They started living together officially after that. Josie had expected Sebastian to be one person in public and another in private, but she discovered he was not only an incredible cook, but also had a frighteningly good memory. Every casual remark she made, he would silently remember and act on. The coffee she liked, he would brew by hand every morning. The lemon-scented laundry detergent she once mentioned she liked was now the only kind they used. He even bought her heating pads and ginger tea before her period started, without her having to say a word. She couldn't help but ask, "Have you been in a serious relationship before?" "Sebastian, no." "Then how do you know all this?" He looked down at her. When you're serious about someone, you learn. In that moment, Josie finally understood that their arrangement had only ever been a pretense for her. For him, from the very beginning, it had always been real. But just as their life together was settling into a sweet, stable routine, a headline exploded online. Famous designer Jocelyn Zhang's late-night rendezvous with mystery man. Intimate behavior sparks rumors about her secret love life. The post featured a blurry photo taken at night. In it, she and Sebastian were standing outside a hotel, and the angle of him draping his coat over her shoulders was deliberately cropped to look like an intimate embrace. The gossip blog added fuel to the fire with captions like "seen entering the same hotel late at night" and "lengthy embrace." The comments section erupted. Didn't Jocelyn Jiang just deny being engaged to the North family? What's this? Is the mystery man her sugar daddy? That car and hotel aren't for regular people. I've been a fan of Josie for 2 years. She always seems so cool and independent. What is this? Josie's face went pale when she saw the news at her studio. I was so careful. Who could have taken this? Sebastian arrived moments later. He took her phone and scanned the article. This photo is from last week. The angle suggests it was taken with professional equipment from the rooftop across the street. This was a planned attack. Josie's jaw tightened. So you're saying someone is trying to create a scandal? More likely, someone doesn't want you to have a clean reputation. Sebastian's eyes darkened. It's time to drag whatever is hiding in the shadows into the light. She looked up at him. What are you going to do? Sebastian stood in front of her and gently kissed her forehead. I told you, I'll take care of your future. I didn't marry you just to watch people slander you. She's my woman, he said, his voice low and cold. Anyone who touches her will pay the price. Josie couldn't believe that the reputation she had worked so hard to build could be torn apart overnight by a few deceptively edited photos. The comments under the hotel photo multiplied, and a tidal wave of negative press crashed down on her. Her studio's PR team was overwhelmed. Fans flooded her DMs, demanding to know what was going on. Even the international collaboration she had just secured was suddenly under internal review. Josie, it looks like your rival bought bots, her assistant said, on the verge of tears. Not only is the topic trending on Twitter, but gossip blogs are digging up old rumors, saying you've been using men to get ahead since college. What are we going to do? The fashion world is already tough for a beautiful designer from a wealthy background. They're going to use this to destroy you. Josie sat on the sofa, her expression calm. Trying to delete the posts is useless now. Who's behind this? We checked. The bots were hired through a third-party agency, but a few of the original accounts that posted the photos have worked with Ashley's team before. Ashley, a classmate from her university. She used to look up to Josie, but after losing several design competitions to her, resentment had festered into bitter jealousy. Josie's eyes turned cold. Get her on the phone. But as she stood to leave, Sebastian stopped her, gently pushing her back down onto the sofa. His gaze was sharp. You're not getting involved in this directly. But if you respond, whether you explain or deny, you'll be labeled as a mess. You need to remain the cool, independent, genius designer everyone admires, not a woman scrambling to clear up rumors. Josie stared at him, speechless. I'm going to turn this scandal into your next victory. Half an hour later, Sebastian personally called the Jiang Group's legal team. Prepare to sue 10 of the largest accounts that spread this. File for defamation, libel, and invasion of privacy. I want lawsuits filed, and I want them to be public. Trace the source of the shares. I don't want a single one of them to get away. Next, he submitted the original, uncropped photo to the police's cybercrime division. That evening, Josie's studio released an official statement, accompanied by a picture of the cease and desist letters. But the real shockwave came from the second story that started trending. Truth behind Jocelyn Zhang's mystery man revealed. Leaked marriage certificate confirms they're legally wed. The link opened to several high-resolution photos of their marriage certificate. On the official document, the two of them stood side by side. Sebastian, handsome and composed. Josie, coolly elegant with a hint of softness. No one was calling him her sugar daddy now. After all, her husband was the newly appointed CEO of North Industries, a man who controlled billions in assets, a prodigy of the business world. The comment section did a complete 180. She's Mrs. North? OMG, I was just talking trash about her. But her husband is hotter and richer than my dad. I'll shut up now. I'm so jealous. The design goddess and the business tycoon. It's a real-life romance novel. The gossip blogs must feel so stupid right now. Slandering a man's wife. You've got guts. Within hours, all the defamatory posts were taken down, and several of the bloggers' accounts were suspended. And Ashley, who had planned to ride the wave of negative press, was suddenly exposed that same night for plagiarizing Josie's old design sketches from their university days. The proof was a set of hand-drawn originals that Josie had never made public. It was Sebastian who had found them, submitted them to the lawyers, and had them leaked anonymously. You knew it was her all along? Josie asked later. You're too kind to people. It makes them think they can walk all over you, he said softly. From now on, I'm here. No one will ever get the chance. Josie stared at him for a few seconds without speaking. That night, she didn't go back to her own room. She sat on the sofa in his study as he poured her a glass of warm milk. The narrative has completely flipped online. Your brand sales are already recovering. It's only 10 a.m., and we've already gotten 7 interview requests from major media outlets. Josie held the glass, her voice quiet. Did you ever for a second think this was all just an arrangement? Sebastian looked at her, his gaze steady. Not from day one. I signed that agreement because I wanted a legitimate reason to be by your side, to protect you, and to love you. You can lie to yourself, Josie, but I won't. He took the glass from her hands, set it down, and leaned in, his lips brushing against hers. From today on, you are not alone. She didn't push him away. Outside, the sky began to darken, and the light in the study softened. In that moment, her heart began to beat with a fierce, wild rhythm. It was as if, from that second forward, she was no longer the heiress who had to handle everything herself. She was Sebastian North's wife, and he would do anything to protect her. Just as Josie and Sebastian's relationship began to stabilize and public interest in them surged, an even more explosive story broke. A well-known celebrity gossip blogger posted a shocking allegation. Sebastian North was in a secret, long-term relationship with A-list actress Chloe Vance. Sources claim they were deeply involved and were photographed at several private meetings. Josie stared at the screen, her brow furrowing. The actress Chloe Vance was a superstar, stunningly beautiful, from a wealthy family and with powerful backers in the industry. The news caused an immediate uproar online. Fans began to take sides, posting snide and inflammatory comments. Josie felt a pressure unlike anything she had experienced before. Sebastian appeared at her side instantly, his expression resolute. Don't believe a word of it, he said, his voice low and firm. Chloe and I were never what they're claiming. But they have pictures, Josie said, a hint of insecurity in her voice. Sebastian took her hand, his grip warm and strong. The pictures are fake, staged, edited. The lawyers are already on it. The truth will come out. His certainty was contagious, and Josie felt her eyes begin to well up. We'll face this together, okay? Sebastian nodded gently, his eyes full of adoration. But the storm was far from over. Shortly after, news broke that Josie's family was trying to force her into a different marriage. Her family elders came to her personally, demanding she marry a business tycoon of their choosing to consolidate the family's assets. Josie, your future is tied to this family, not your personal feelings. I will not agree to this, she replied coldly. You don't have a choice in the matter. This is a family decision. The conflict escalated, and Josie felt the weight of it all pressing down on her. When Sebastian found out, he was furious. He arrived at the Jiang family home with his legal team and made his position clear. Jocelyn is an adult, and she has the right to choose her own happiness. Any form of coercion is illegal. The family elders were stunned into silence, but the underlying threat remained. Caught between two fires, Josie's spirits sank, and she even began to doubt her relationship with Sebastian. One night, she told him, "This was supposed to be an arrangement, but I'm afraid I'm actually falling in love with you." Sebastian smiled softly, tightening his grip on her hand. "Then I guess I'll never let you go. Will you? Will you always be with me? Always?" It was then that Chloe Vance suddenly appeared, confronting Josie with a complicated expression. "You think you can win him? Don't be naive. The story between Sebastian and me is much more complicated than you know." Josie met her gaze calmly. "I don't need to compete with anyone. As long as he chooses me, I'm the only one." The emotional tangle between the three of them grew tighter, and the ultimate test of trust and choice was fast approaching. Josie finally understood that beyond their initial agreement, their hearts were already inextricably linked, and she was ready to fight for their love with everything she had. Chloe's words were a sharp-edged knife, slicing through the peace Josie had found. That night, Josie lay in bed, unable to sleep. Sebastian sat beside her, gently holding her hand. "Ignore her," he said, his voice a firm, comforting presence. "We are the only ones who know the truth." Josie looked up at him, her eyes shining with a storm of emotions. Do you really love me?" Sebastian's gaze was full of devotion. "From the moment I met you, my heart has never belonged to anyone else." His words were like a spell, melting away all of Josie's defenses. She finally leaned into his embrace, whispering, "I love you too." The air between them turned sweet and warm. At the same time, Josie decided to face her family head-on. She showed them, through her actions, that her relationship with Sebastian was no longer a cold contract, but a genuine partnership built on love. Sebastian stepped in to mediate, using his connections and resources to help the Jiang family resolve a sudden financial crisis. Finally, her family elders relented, accepting their relationship and acknowledging Sebastian's place in her life. Professionally, with Sebastian's support and her own undeniable talent, Josie secured several major projects, and her reputation soared. Sebastian worked quietly behind the scenes, smoothing the way for her and managing difficult relationships. Their love was strong, and their careers flourished in tandem. One evening, Josie whispered in Sebastian's ear, "This isn't just an arrangement anymore. I want to build a real life with you." Sebastian held her tighter. "From this day forward, you are my one and only. My world is you." This time, there were no pretenses, no doubts, only a love that was certain and a promise for the future. In the days that followed, the shadow of their initial arrangement faded completely, replaced by a deep, instinctual warmth and reliance on each other. They had breakfast together every morning. Sebastian would carefully prepare Josie's favorite coffee, and she would bake small pastries for him. No matter what rumors swirled outside, they proved their commitment through their actions. At a major corporate gala, Josie was breathtaking in a magnificent evening gown. Sebastian came to her side and murmured, "Tonight, no matter what anyone says, you know that I'm your man." Josie looked up at him, a radiant smile on her face. "Then I suppose I can rely on you completely." They shared a knowing look, and in that moment, nothing in the world could shake their unspoken bond. However, happiness rarely comes without its trials. One day, Sebastian received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end threatened to expose a certain secret from his past if he didn't leave Josie. Sebastian remained calm. He coolly handled the threat, quickly tracing the caller's identity and neutralizing the situation through his network. Afterward, he told Josie everything, his eyes filled with a new level of resolve. "No matter what happens, we face it together." Josie squeezed his hand and nodded firmly. "We're the ultimate team." The experience only deepened their understanding of how much they meant to each other, making their bond unbreakable. On the business front, Josie's brand expanded into new markets with Sebastian's backing, and her company's profits soared. They were a power couple, their success story becoming legendary in their industry. Finally, on a sunny afternoon, in Josie's favorite coffee shop, Sebastian took out a small, velvet ring box. "Josie, marry me, not as part of an agreement, but as my promise for a lifetime." Tears welled in Josie's eyes as she smiled and nodded. Yes. Their love, which began as a contract, had blossomed into a real and lasting commitment, finally reaching its perfect destination. After the wedding, Josie and Sebastian moved into the beautiful, modern home they had chosen together. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air and casting a soft glow on the couple as they stood wrapped in each other's arms. The first few days were a gentle dance of adapting to each other's rhythms. Josie was an early riser who loved making breakfast, while Sebastian preferred to unwind with a cup of tea late at night. Sometimes, the sound of Josie's happy, off-key singing would drift from the kitchen, and Sebastian would always appear, smiling, to steal the spatula from her hand. "Let me rescue this meal," he'd tease, expertly flipping the contents of the pan. Josie would give him a playful glare. "This is what happens when you get lazy. I have to take over." They'd laugh, and the warmth between them would fill the room. After dinner, they loved to curl up on the sofa and watch movies. Sebastian would mischievously rest his hand on her shoulder, and she would pretend to be annoyed, shoving him away. "You monster! Are you trying to keep me up all night?" "I am. What about it?" he'd reply with a wicked grin. She'd laugh and pull him closer. "Me too." Their life was slowly filled with these small, happy moments. Josie's career continued to skyrocket. She became a fixture at major industry events, a sought-after talent who handled the constant flash of cameras and probing questions with her signature cool elegance. Sebastian was her rock, always by her side at every important function, no matter how busy he was. "I'm so glad I have you," she'd murmur, leaning her tired head on his shoulder after a long event. He would kiss her forehead. "I'll always be here, through anything." But even the most perfect picture can have shadows. One day, Josie received an anonymous call. A cold voice on the other end hissed, "Don't think marrying him means you're safe." Josie didn't flinch. She simply handed the phone to Sebastian. His brow furrowed as he listened, and he immediately began investigating the forces moving against them. "Don't worry, Josie," he told her, his voice firm. "I won't let anyone hurt you." They faced every crisis side by side, their bond strengthening with each challenge they overcame. Late one night, after working on a deadline, Josie curled up in Sebastian's arms. "No matter how hard the future gets," she whispered, "I'm not afraid, because I have you." Sebastian held her tight. "Me too, Josie. We'll walk this path together." With their love and trust, they built an unshakable fortress, ready to face every sunrise and sunset that belonged to them. After weathering so many storms, Josie and Sebastian's relationship was stronger than ever. The external threats and shadows had dissipated in the face of their unwavering love. Josie had firmly established herself at the pinnacle of her industry, and Sebastian remained her silent, steadfast support system. Their home was filled with laughter. When a busy Josie came home late, she would find Sebastian waiting for her with a warm cup of tea. When Sebastian was exhausted from work, Josie would quietly cook him his favorite meal. They protected and cherished each other. One morning, Josie woke to the sound of Sebastian softly humming the song that had been playing when they first met. She reached for his hand, her eyes full of love. "Sebastian, thank you for always being with me." He smiled, his gaze certain. "No matter what the future holds, I will always be your safe harbor." Sunlight filled the room, falling on their clasped hands and on the happy life they were writing together. They were no longer bound by a contract, but by a love that was real and true. Their happiness had no end, only a shared journey, forever side by side.